I also noticed that everyone's doing this now, this whole live stream. Facebook is doing it. Google, I mean, they're the ones that I've been using. But more social media companies are using it. And I think Periscope was kind of like the ones that kind of started it in a way. But I could be wrong. It's kind of cool that you can now have your videos live. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I think open the same image here that I was using yesterday. I might have deleted it. See, I might be able to get something more interesting here. Oops. I still have it. So another way of placing your images into Photoshop, you can just click and drag them in to the Photoshop logo on your dock. That will automatically open it. The only problem I see with this is that you keep the same option as the file. You're not opening a new Photoshop file with your own settings. So if you were opening something with like 300 dpi and you had it set to be a certain way, it's no longer doing that. It's doing something like opening this JPEG, and when I go into image adjustment or image size, I can resample it and make it different, right? So what I mean to say here is, say you were working on an 8x10. You wanted to print this as an 8x10. You know your dimensions, and that's the way that we've been doing it. You know the dimensions first, you set up your file, and you go from there. When you open an image from Photoshop, or when you open an image into Photoshop, then it's gonna open the image as is. So it's gonna be that huge file. So then you have to actually change it to something that that makes more sense. So in this case, I'm gonna shrink it down to an 8x10, and I am gonna keep the resolution to 300. What happened there? Okay, 8x12 today, that's fine. Perfect. So resized it. I didn't suffer any because it was a bigger image. So I was able to keep the resolution up, but I at the same time able to shrink it down a little bit. So on to masking. First thing I should do is create this new layer here. I want to add a background. I'll see if I can find something a little bit more fun here than this bridge. I should have some in the stock that we can use. Okay, let's go here. I'm gonna go into this file. There we go. All right, so this is kind of cool. And there's another, there we go. This one's great. I'm gonna drag this one as well into Photoshop. Now I have it open on this side. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this background, and I'm gonna place that image background onto my original file with the crazy person, right? The really cool rainbowy outfit guy. We'll call it I don't know, Bob. Let's call him Bob. All right, so we're gonna put this sky picture behind Bob, and he's gonna be kind of the floating in the sky in a way. And I'm gonna use the masking tool today instead of what I was using yesterday, which was selection tools deleted from the background, right? So it's a little bit of an interesting way how this works. So I'm gonna select this background. Let's see. Shift it. And I'm gonna just drag it off. I'm gonna grab that file. I'm just gonna drag it off of the kind of like the toolbar that's on there. So you can, at any time where you're working with multiple files in Photoshop, you can just, kind of like you do with Chrome or Firefox, you can just grab the tab and move it into its own separate window. And then that allows you to move it into one document. So what I did there is I grabbed it with the selection tool, and I just placed it onto this document here. I'm gonna go ahead and layer my background. So the bottom layer is the one in the back. The one on the top is, as it sounds, the one in the top, right? So I have my two layers. I can drop opacity from my layers panel just to kind of get my my images centered so that I can start working on them. And I can drop it all the way down so I can really see both images at the same time. And I can place them in the order that I want or where I would like them to be. And if this keeps happening where you're trying to select the bottom layer and then when you try to move it, it goes back to the top layer. On the top menu, there's an auto select option. I'm gonna go ahead and unclick that so that when I click layer 1, I'm moving layer 1. I'm not moving both of them together. Okay. So as I was saying, I'm gonna go ahead and crop Bob out of his background, and I'm gonna put him in this nice little sky scene. And I'm gonna use it, I'm gonna do it making layer masks. So I'm gonna click this button right here. And if you hover right over it, it should tell you what it is. It's a layer mask. And for this, I'm gonna use a brush. Now, like I was telling you guys with layer masks, the cool thing about it is that you can use a brush to do a selection. So you can have a brush that has a little bit more texture. For general purposes of just extracting an image out, you're just gonna use a regular brush, maybe with some softness to it. And you can kind of adjust the size as well. So you can select more area. And I'm gonna go ahead and just start making the selection here. And as I'm making the selection, you'll see that I start erasing and it starts to show the background of the other image. So it has this nice effect of right away giving you the image in the background. So you can see exactly what you're doing with your work. Now be careful not to be painting on the actual image itself, because then you're gonna color Bob, right? And you don't wanna color Bob, you wanna color the mask to reveal the background. So I'm gonna go ahead and undo that. You can press Command-C. And remember, Command-C, unless you've changed the keyboard pattern, only gets you back and forward. If you wanna go back one more step and you wanna stay with the Photoshop preset, you gotta press Command-Option-Z. And then you can go back a few steps. Or you can use a history panel as well, which should be at the top right, depending on your layout. If you happen to lose it, go to Window, click on History, and that should make it reappear for you. Okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and continue painting here. Am I on the, yeah, I'm on the wrong background here. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and click on my layer mask. And I'm just gonna continue the selection process here. And if the image in the background, for instance, I have a landscape image and I have a portrait image, right? So one's gonna be a little bit smaller than the other, and Bob's gonna look huge, which is okay. Now let me show you what happens when you add some fun to this, and I'll start using some of the crazy brushes here. So you can actually start adding some texture to it. And you can see that you're still selecting from the background image, but you can actually add some texture to it. So it's kind of a cool trick if you didn't want to completely face out the background, but you just want it to be parts of the background, which could be kind of cool if you wanted to add like a metallic, like you were layering different colors, more on the artistic side, not so much on the photo side. But if you were trying to create like the way metal looks by using different brushes and using maybe layer masks, you can kind of get that effect. But if you wanted to make a wood grain with your own painting, that's how you could do it. There's more procedural ways to do that, like adding filters to it and having the computer generate it for you. But making layer masks is a way where you can do both. Select items, kind of take the background out by using a layer mask, or add some texture to it by grabbing some of the background that's in it into the foreground subject or the image that's in the front, right? Another thing that you can do is you can change a little bit of the settings of your layer mask if you double click it. you also have the ability to refine the edge, kind of like we did with selections. So if you were kind of cautious and you didn't get all the way to your subject, and you wanted to expand that edge just a little bit, you can do that through those settings. The way I got there is I went ahead and double clicked that layer mask right there. And that's how it gave me that. So let me show you another cool trick that you can do. For this, I'm gonna make a new file. I'm just gonna call it brush for now. I'm gonna place my image of Bob. Love how I gave him a nickname. And I promise next week to have better images for you guys. I know you're probably getting tired of Bob. Let's see if I can find Bob today. There we go. There he is. Okay, so I got Bob again. I placed it. And remember, when you place an object, it's calling a smart object, right? So we can blend it into the background by pressing this. And then it becomes a background. Alternatively, you can also right-click it. Let me see. If I right-click this one when it's unlocked. Okay, when you right-click it, when it's still a smart object, you can rasterize the layer. And rasterize just means to pixelate it, to actually make it editable in Photoshop, right? So another thing that I can do with Bob here is, after I've selected him out, so let me put my layer masking into skill here, into work. And let me actually show you a different way to layer mask. So see this little button right here, editing quick mask mode. I'm gonna press that. And it's gonna draw kind of like a red, similar to what happened yesterday when we were working on a different, when did we use this last time? We used it for the text, remember that? We did the text on their selection mode, and it made this kind of like red effect, and all of a sudden your whole image was red. You're probably wondering what is going on. Well, that's your layer mask. So I'm making a quick selection with this, and then when I release it, all it's gonna do is actually give me the selection of my object. So if you're more comfortable with painting and possibly using the styluses for this is the way to go. But if you like the other method of selection better, either with the Magic Wand tool or the Quick Selection tool, or even the Magnetic Lasso tool, which happens to be my favorite, then just kind of pick which one you feel the most comfortable with. Again, there's more than one way to do this when you're working with Photoshop or any of these programs. Okay, so pretty much of a rough selection here. Okay, when I click it again, so I click that button again right here on the bottom, see it added my selection. I can press, oops, convert it, because I selected the person, not the background. So for that, I can go to select, inverse. And that automatically selects the background to just leave Bob right here. And if you missed a spot, you can always grab like one of the mass selection tools, like the marquee one or the oval selection tool, and just get rid of all those other spaces that you might have missed. Okay. So once you have it right here, let's see if it will let me. One thing that I had to do in the previous one to make it work is to make the image smaller. But we should be able to go to where did I go last time? Edit. There we go. So you can make a brush preset out of an image. And that's where it gets pretty crazy. The problem is it has to be a certain size. So I'm going to go ahead and change the size of the image. So I'm going to go to image, and then image size. And I'm going to shrink it down to 800. Actually, I'm going to make it even smaller than that. I'm going to make it 300 by 450. So really small now, because all I want to get is a brush out of it. And you can see the definition right away shrunk, right? It's not as detailed as it used to be. But now I have the ability to define a brush. So now I have a bob brush. So this is where it starts to get crazy. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my brushes. Let's see, there's my brush presets, and I wanna find Bob on here. Let me see. Go to my brush tool right here. And I think that's Bob right there. Yep, there's Bob. So now I have a picture of Bob. So what I'm gonna be doing, I'm gonna make sure that you guys are able to kind of use the masking tool to make your selections. And then we're actually gonna be using this brush preset tool, because this is the best way to make a quick selection of something complex. So if you spend a lot of time, tracing an image out, this is a way where you can save that selection with all of its power, right? Because sometimes when you make just a selection, it's just grabbing the outside of it. By making a brush preset, it's giving you a little bit on the alpha channel as well. And what the alpha channel means is the actual darkness or lightness. It's pretty much making a stamp. When you have a stamp, it's defined, right? It's not just an outline of a star. It could be a pretty cool star, like a NorCal star, I call them, right? Where you have some shape and texture inside of the actual clone. So let's try to go through that together. I'm gonna go ahead and pause the lecture now.